Danger on our roads. Shocking footage of a cyclist struck by a truck on the same day and in the same bike lane that a young woman was killed this summer. Good afternoon. A lawyer for the cyclist says the rider is still receiving medical attention for his injuries. This is an ongoing issue Mayor Olivia Chow addressed this morning. CTV's Mike Walker joins us now live to give us the details. Mike.
Well, Michelle, we spoke with lawyer David Stronach. He tells us his client is lucky to be alive after being struck by a large construction truck. He shared the video with us, which we are going to play with you right now, which captured the incident. Now, this happened around 10 in the morning on July 25th at the intersection of Dufferin and Bloor. In the video, you can see the truck making a right-hand turn, crashing into the cyclist who was in the bike lane and about to travel through the intersection. Stronach says his client was in the right-of-way, adding there are signs posted at the intersection indicating that right turns were not allowed at that time. Now, this happened on the same day a 24-year-old cyclist was struck and killed by a dump truck at Avenue in Bloor when they were forced to exit the bike lanes due to a garbage bin being left there. Now, in the wake of this incident, Stronach is calling on the government to take bold action to protect cyclists as well as additional safety measures for construction trucks.
We have these massive trucks being driven around by folks who are obviously incapable of driving them safely. This is a roadway where you're not permitted to turn right at that period of time. But even if you were, there's a bike lane and you have to yield the right of way before you cut across it. Cyclists have the right of way at that intersection. So there's obviously someone who does not know how to drive in this city and is putting vulnerable road users at risk. Why was this vehicle driving in such a dangerous way? What will happen to the driver and the company who employed the vehicle, and why weren't there guards and protective features on the truck?
This morning, Mayor Olivia Chow responded to this incident, stressing that truck drivers watch their blind spots. She's also calling for mandatory side guards on trucks. Here's more.
It's time the federal government mandates side guards on trucks, because without side guards, cyclists, pedestrians can easily whip into under the wheels of their truck and they could get killed. And I'm glad that incident that the cyclist was not seriously hurt. He could easily have been killed and it wasn't his fault.
Stronach says his client is still being treated for his injuries. He also added that the truck driver in this case has been charged. We've reached out to Toronto police to confirm what charges have been laid in this incident and are still waiting to hear back at this time. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Mike. 2 people were taken to hospital after a shooting in the Jane and Eglinton area early this morning. Police say a man and woman were sitting in a vehicle on Emmett Avenue around 2:30 a.m. when another vehicle approached and someone inside opened fire. Paramedics say the woman was seriously injured but is expected to survive, while the man suffered minor injuries. Police say they do not have any information about the suspect at the moment. Still ahead on CTV News at noon, massive disappointment for fans of Taylor Swift. The pop superstar canceled shows in Vienna after a terror plot was uncovered. Details on that a little later in the newscast. But first, let's have a look at the sky. Not a bad start, but you can definitely see the clouds have rolled in. It is overcast, and there's the risk of wet weather. There's also a special weather statement in effect. Jessica Smith is here to talk more about this. What does that mean? We have some ugly stuff heading our way?
We do. It's the leftovers of Tropical Storm Debbie, so it's making its way towards us and will generally stay mostly overcast as we head throughout the day today. And then it's as we head in towards the early evening that we really see things start to shift. For now, it's just a whole lot of cloud cover out there and it's muggy. We're feeling really, really muggy. Debbie's still sitting quite far south of the border, but it moves in as we head through the overnight, and that's what's prompted a number of special weather statements and some rainfall warnings in eastern Ontario. So for Toronto, the GTA, we're looking at anywhere from 20 to maybe 50 millimeters. Any amount really at this point is going to cause some localized flooding because the ground is just so saturated. In eastern Ontario, they're looking at 50 to 75, so they're getting the brunt of it before it moves in towards areas through southern Quebec. Temperature-wise, it's not terrible. We're at 23, but it feels like 31, so that mugginess, that heaviness when you walk out the door only increases as we head throughout the day. Coming up, I'll have your full forecast. Right now, I'll send it back over to Michelle.
Thank you, Jess. A police officer was hurt in a hit and run near Exhibition Place. This officer was struck by a motorcyclist shortly after 7:15 last night at Lakeshore Boulevard and New Brunswick Way. Police say the officer suffered minor injuries and is going to be okay. The suspect was driving a white, red, and silver Ducati speed bike with a missing side mirror. And a police cruiser was involved in a crash last night in Flemington Park. The cruiser and a dark sedan, both with front end damage, collided in the intersection of Don Mills and Overley. Fortunately, only minor injuries reported here. And a fire and gas leak inside a downtown condo building forced people from their homes last night. The two-alarm blaze started inside of the parking garage on Richmond, just east of Peter Street. Surrounding buildings had to be evacuated because of a gas leak. No injuries have been reported. York Regional Police are looking for a suspect wanted for dangerous driving after fleeing a traffic stop.
Put your seatbelt on and pull over here on the right here for me.
Police say this happened Sunday afternoon near Yonge and John Streets. The officer spotted a driver who wasn't wearing a seatbelt, and as you saw when he was asked to pull over, instead he sped away. Investigators say the car's license plate did not match the vehicle, indicating it may be stolen. A terror plot has forced Taylor Swift to cancel concerts in Vienna. CTV's Scott Lightfoot spoke to a local fan now shut out of the show.
We were at the grounds picking up some packages. We met people from all over the world.
For the thousands of fans who'd made their way to the Austrian capital, it was disappointing news.
All 3 nights at the Vienna Eras tour are now canceled.
Toronto resident Ariella Kimmel was taking that news better than some.
To be honest, I was really heartbroken for everybody.
Fans got word that 3 Taylor Swift concerts planned for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night in Vienna had been canceled after an alleged terrorism plot was uncovered involving the Islamic State.
In terms of the target, this makes absolute sense. Terrorists are always aiming for venues that will create a maximum amount of carnage. What could be a more attractive target for them than a Taylor Swift concert, or 3 of them?
Austrian officials say a 19-year-old was arrested in a town south of Vienna. Another man was arrested in the city. Police say the pair had become radicalized by the internet, and the teen had made an oath to the leader of the Islamic State last month. Police say the two had undertaken what they called concrete preparatory measures for a terrorist attack.
We have to keep in mind the IS is still a threat. They have been, their numbers have been diminished, and there are a lot of good measures to put in place by Western governments and law enforcement to prevent attacks like this, but it's not perfect, it's not 100% safe. So if there are clear warnings like this, this is the reaction that has to happen.
The concert's promoter said in an Instagram post, "We had no choice but to cancel for everyone's safety." Kimmel agrees.
I think the government made a very clear decision to keep us all safe, which I am heartbroken for, but I'm also grateful for at the same time.
Now she and her friends will find another way to spend their time in Vienna without a show to see.
Scott Lightfoot, CTV News.
Now, at this time, officials in the UK say Swift shows in London next week will go ahead amid heightened caution and scrutiny. Swift's Eras tour is coming to Toronto in November, and Mayor Olivia Chow expressed confidence the city and police will be able to keep concertgoers safe.
It's less than 100 days before Taylor Swift come to Toronto. I have full confidence that between all our security folks, whether it's the federal and the local, we will keep everyone safe and sound. I am not worried at all. And no cancellation, because the Swifties will be so disappointed, me included.
This follows the recent arrest of a father and son by RCMP on terrorism charges. They were alleged to be in the advanced stages of planning an attack in Toronto in the service of listed terror group ISIS. Details on the potential target have not been published. Mayor Chow noted the arrests in the GTA and Austria were successfully made before plans could be put into action. To the Middle East now, where Palestinian medics say Israeli forces stepped up airstrikes across Gaza today, killing at least 40 people. In Israel, the children of Canadian diplomats will be temporarily relocated to a safe third country. The move is being made amid concerns of an all-out war in the Middle East, but Canadian embassy staff are expected to stay in Israel. On Saturday, Ottawa warned Canadians to avoid all travel to that country and also advised against going to the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and Lebanon. In the U.S., Tropical Storm Debbie made second landfall last night. The storm came ashore in South Carolina. It caused flooding and tornadoes and temporarily shut down part of Interstate 95. The storm is being blamed for the death of one person in North Carolina. Up to 23 centimeters of additional rain is possible as the storm moves north, raising concerns of flash floods in mountainous areas of Virginia and West Virginia. And a powerful earthquake struck off the coast of southern Japan today. 9 people received mostly minor injuries, and there were no reports of serious damage from what was a magnitude 7.1 quake. But further assessment is being done. Residents of the affected region are being warned to stay away from the coastline. Officials say strong aftershocks could occur for about a week. The leader of Bangladesh's interim government has taken the oath of office. Mohammed Yunus returned home today following rebellion that prompted the country's former prime minister to step down and flee to India. Yunus will now seek to restore peace in Bangladesh and prepare for new elections. Some of the student leaders who led the revolt had proposed the Nobel laureate as interim leader. Well, another medal for Canadians at the Paris Olympics. Maud Charon has won silver in the women's 59-kilogram weightlifting. For all the latest, let's get a CTV Scott Hurst, who joins us now. Tell us more about Charon's performance today.
Michelle, what an Olympics it has already been for Maud Charon. Of course, she was one of our opening ceremony flag bearers with Andre de Grasse after coming into these Olympics, winning gold in Tokyo. And now she can add silver to her growing trophy case back at home, as she is now a 2-time Olympic medalist in her second Olympic Games. Maud Charon competing in weightlifting in a different weight class than she competed in Tokyo. That weight class in Tokyo doesn't exist in the Olympic program anymore, so she went down a weight class, but Michelle proving that she is still dominant in the sport, winning an Olympic silver medal to go with her gold in Tokyo.
We're also hearing from our latest medalist. How is Alicia Newman reacting to winning bronze yesterday in pole vault? That was fun to watch.
It was super fun to watch because this is something that took about 3+ hours, but you can see that these competitors were having fun in between time, despite all the tension, of course, going for an Olympic medal. And Alicia Newman said that when competitors see that she's having fun, even they know that they might be in trouble. So she was in a good headspace yesterday. She upped a Canadian record and also was able to jump to bronze. So she cleared 4.85 meters to secure that Olympic bronze. This is her third Olympics and first Olympic medal, so quite an incredible accomplishment, winning the bronze medal. Here's more from what she had to say.
A lot of the girls say if Alicia's having fun, she's going to be hard to beat. And so I think I was really able to bring that in yesterday. I was having fun. I was interacting with the crowd. I feel like, yes, I'm an athlete, but I feel like I'm beyond that. I'm an entertainer, and I enjoy having a good time. I want everyone else to have a good time, which gives me energy.
And Michelle, as you mentioned, this definitely was entertaining to watch yesterday, jumping to an Olympic bronze medal. And this is Canada's first ever Olympic medal in women's pole vaulting. So quite an accomplishment for Alicia Newman.
CTV Scott Hurst live for us in the CTV National Newsroom. So much to make Canadians proud. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Jess, over to you.
Well, Michelle, it is going to be one of those days you want to keep your eye to the sky. Yes, mostly cloudy, but we're watching for the rain later on this evening. But it is going to be so humid out there. So don't let the more seasonal temperatures fool you when you look at the temperatures themselves. Look at the feels like temperature, that humidex value. It is quite muggy. We're at 24. It's going to feel like 32. So it just goes to show you that temperature difference. We're looking at a mostly cloudy afternoon. There's the chance of some showers, but that really rolls in as we head into the early evening. Again, the remnants of Tropical Storm Debbie. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast. We'll break down the special weather statements in place. All those details after the break.
And just like that, we're into the back half of the week, and there's a bit of a change. We had really nice weather yesterday. Not a horrible start today at all, but we've lost some of the sun, and now we have some stormy stuff, enough to prompt a special weather statement.
Yeah, and we've already seen so much rain. We already broke the record through July. We saw all that rain and all that flooding. So anytime we have a rain event now, because the ground is so saturated, I know the river levels are still so high. The John River is still so high. The likelihood of flooding is very possible locally. So this is kind of a heads up. The bulk of the rain, really heavy rain, is overnight tonight and into the start of the day tomorrow. So give yourself that extra time. Plan ahead if you can. And this is just going to be one of those things we have to ride out. The good news is, as we get through the end of the day tomorrow, the sun comes back out. It's just kind of a soggy night and start to the day. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm. Injury lawyers you don't pay unless they win. We saw a few peaks of sun early on this morning, a view from our chopper early, right around 7:30, and the bulk of it really was quite brief. We see those clouds starting to really settle in. I like these shots where you can just see the beginnings, the early steps of a storm system. And as we head throughout the day today, the humidity rises. We're looking at our temperatures holding steady at a fairly seasonal mark, and then things shift as we head through the overnight. Right now we're at 23, but it feels like 31. So we're holding on to a lot of that water vapor in there. It feels quite sticky out there. And as we head throughout the rest of our day, it really only builds for central and southern Ontario. Heading into today, again, we don't really see too much of a change temperature-wise, but those humidex values really do start to rise across the majority of southern Ontario, and specifically around the Golden Horseshoe. Niagara, for example, will be 26. It'll feel like 36. Into this evening, the bulk of the rain, we're looking at showers off and on throughout the day today, but the heavier showers really begin kind of after 9 p.m. and roll through the overnight. We're looking at 21 for the low, still feeling like 32, and everybody is holding on to that mugginess. A system making its way through northern Ontario, prompting some alerts there. Another one coming up, that's the leftovers of Debbie, prompting those alerts. Eastern Ontario, 50 to 75 millimeters for the GTA, the downtown core, 25 to about 50. So we're kind of teetering in that area where localized flooding is just kind of a possibility when we get that more than 10 millimeter range. So just as a heads up for late tonight and into the start of the day tomorrow. There's that low there that's going to push its way into northern Ontario. And coming up from south of the border, we have one low here, and then we have Debbie behind it. So all of this coming together prompts for some pretty significant rainfall. As we head throughout the day today, again, just generally cloudy out there, quite humid, pop-up showers definitely possible, but the heavy stuff happens after we get through the dinner hour, after we get through that evening rush. We look at some spotty showers beginning around 9:30, but really and truly it's as we get into the early morning hours tomorrow that we see the rain start to move in. It's not a wash of a day, but it comes in a couple of waves. Anywhere east of us, say Pickering, Oshawa, Whitby, Ajax, up towards, say, Peterborough, they're holding on to the heavier rainfall amounts. Heading into the lunch hour, again, just another wave of showers. It really starts to settle into eastern Ontario. And then as we head into the late afternoon, the sun starts to come out. I think there's a Jays game tomorrow, depending on how they roll things. There might even be, the dome might even be open. And then we're holding on to some sunshine. So again, this is an overnight and into the start of the day situation for the majority of the GTA tomorrow. And then getting in towards our Saturday, we lose a lot of the heat and humidity, but we hold on to a lot more sunshine. So it's a bit of a trade-off. Temperature-wise, again, throughout the day today and into our Friday, very seasonal before you factor in the humidex, and then it starts to feel into the 30s. Tonight, we're holding on at 21. We should be at about 17, so it'll be a muggy night. And then Friday, after we get through the rain, into the afternoon, we lose a lot of that heat and we actually dip below seasonal, just 14 for the low. Your Saturday, your Sunday, despite not being a seasonal forecast as far as our temperatures go, we get that sunshine back. Things start to dry up a little bit. And as we head in towards really the beginning of next week, we tiptoe back towards a much more seasonal forecast for the daytime highs and overnight lows. So a bit of a reprieve this weekend temperature-wise. We don't hold on to all of that heat and humidity. High pressure starts to settle back in, clear things out, dry things up. And we go from shy of seasonal throughout your Saturday and Sunday to being exactly where we should be as we head in towards next week. So yes, it is a soggy night and start to the day tomorrow, Michelle, but really there is a silver lining. There's some sun on the horizon, quite literally, as we head in towards the end of the day tomorrow. Send it back to you.
That'll be great. Thank you, Jess.
Thanks.
WestJet is still trying to recover from a massive hailstorm that hit Calgary earlier this week. Several flights out of Pearson to Calgary were canceled this morning as the airline works to repair 16 planes that were damaged in this storm. The Calgary International Airport was pummeled by hail Monday evening, forcing parts of its domestic terminal to close for repairs for an undetermined time. That doesn't look right. For more now, we're joined by CTV's aviation expert, Phil Dirty. Phil, great to have you on. Thank you for joining us. What happened there? You don't see that every day. What do you make of the situation?
Well, good afternoon, Michelle. It's great to be with you. That storm was pretty robust, and there was golf ball-sized hail, and that can do a lot of damage to an aircraft. So, WestJet grounded those 16 airplanes to make sure that they're airworthy.
10% of its fleet. Let's talk about the damage to aircraft. I mean, I would imagine aircraft are built to withstand some of the weather woes that happen from time to time. What do you think about the repair efforts and how long that might take?
Well, Michelle, as I said, the aircraft was subjected to the golf ball size hail. And what it's doing is it's dimpling the aircraft, because you know that the aircraft is metal, it's aluminum, right? So it does dent with high velocity impacts from the hail itself. Now, there's also composite material, so that has to be checked as well. So what they're going to be doing is they're going to be checking all the wings of the aircraft, the fuselage, the tail of the airplane, the nose, the glass. And what is really important to note is that where the impact zone is, we have to check around that area to make sure there's no cracking. But also we have to go inside the aircraft to look at it from underneath to see if there's any cracking or delamination on the inside of the airplane as well.
Well, it's comforting to know that that level of detail happens. People want to get on their flights, but they also want their planes certainly to be safe. And obviously, as this takes time, it disrupts things. There's so many planes landing and taking off all the time, and really has a domino effect. What's your take? Has it been a tough time for the airline industry?
Well, when something like this happens, it really puts the brakes on. But the thing is, we have to stress it's all with WestJet grounding these 16 aircraft. It's all for safety reasons, because what happens is with the dimpling of the aircraft where the hail is hit, what it does is it changes the aerodynamic flow over the wings and can affect the characteristics of the flight. So we want to make sure that everything's good. The airline industry is rebounding after COVID, and we're starting to get more and more aircraft in the air, and it's a good time to fly.
That's good to hear. But certainly then you hear about these more adverse weather effects and hail in the summer. Would you say it's rather unusual, though, to have a hailstorm that does that kind of damage in the airport and onto the aircraft?
Well, not really, Michelle. Back in 1995, when I was in Winnipeg in the Air Force, we had a hailstorm come through, and it did well over $5 billion worth of damage. We had an F-18 come through a thunderstorm one time, and it was in the clouds for about 20 seconds, and it did $2 million damage to that aircraft. The aircraft was grounded for 2 weeks. The thing is that these storms during the daytime heating with really the convective heating, then what happens is the storms just build and build and build, and they get into these supercells.
Well, we certainly know you've seen a lot in your time. You're definitely an expert in the airline industry. Certainly appreciate it. Phil Dirty, have a great day.
Great. Thanks for having me, Michelle.
Also on the air travel front, yes, it's been a bumpy ride for the industry, but also airline passengers this summer, because there have been many flights that have been delayed or canceled. And a lawsuit has been launched against WestJet over a cap it has put in place over how much it will pay passengers if they need meals and hotel stays. CTV's Pat Foran has more.
In July, WestJet was hit with a mechanic strike that left 150,000 passengers stranded. Now the airline wants to place a cap on how much they have to pay if someone needed meals or a hotel room.
We just would like to put back money into passengers' pockets that belongs to the passengers to begin with.
The group Air Passenger Rights filed a lawsuit against WestJet over its reimbursement policies. On WestJet's website, it states there is a cap of $150 or $200 for non-Canadian destinations per night for hotel stays, as well as a cap of $45 per day for meal expenses. The group says those caps are against the law.
There's nothing in the law that would provide WestJet with an excuse to not cover fully passengers' meals and accommodation when a flight is disrupted for reasons entirely within the carrier's control.
Generally, if a flight is canceled, an airline will provide vouchers for food and hotel rooms, or you may have to pay for them yourself and be reimbursed. Finding a hotel at the last minute for $150 is extremely difficult to do.
On July 1st, if you were in Vancouver, you could not get a hotel room for under $500. If you're in Toronto during Indy Toronto and there's a flight cancellation, you can't get a room for under $400. So, you know, it really depends on the city that you're in.
In the lawsuit, the passenger rights group is calling for WestJet to remove the cap information from its website and stop responding with it when passengers seek compensation.
We would like to ensure that this misleading information is removed from WestJet's website.
CTV News reached out to WestJet about the lawsuit. A spokesperson said the airline does not comment on matters before the courts. Pat Foran, CTV News.
The granddaughter of Canadian auto parts billionaire Frank Stronach is headed to court, demanding the Stronach family business disclose any documents that might exist relating to complaints of sexual harassments or settlements. Selena Stronach alleged the Stronach Group mismanaged assets to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars and cut her out of her deserved wealth. And then Frank Stronach was charged with 13 counts of sexual assault going back to the 1970s. And that has opened up a new front in this lawsuit, with the granddaughter also alleging the Stronach Group paid out a number of claimants of sexual harassment. So they have asked for documents and details of these alleged payments, haven't gotten them, and that is why they're going to court. Lawyer Matthew Gottlieb told Justice Peter Osborne this morning, quote, "We're talking about allegations against Frank Stronach for sexual harassment and other improper conduct that would have been dealt with at the highest levels of the Stronach Group. We're not talking about electrical bills. We're talking about settlements for sexual harassment against Frank Stronach." The allegations have not been proven in court, and Stronach himself has denied the charges of sexual assault in criminal court. The civil court battle is a new front that questions the role of the company and challenges the reputation of one of Canada's wealthiest people. A new report suggests the rate of Canadians opting for medically assisted death is growing faster than in any other country. But as CTV's Alison Bamford explains, doctors who perform the process say this was expected.
More and more Canadians are opting for medical assistance in dying.
We can expect an increase with any new medical practice.
The most recent data shows MAID accounted for 4.1% of all Canadian deaths in 2022. The number of medically assisted deaths growing roughly 4.5 times higher than in 2017, the first full year MAID was legalized. Canada's rate nearing that of the Netherlands, which legalized physician-assisted dying in 2002.
We want to make sure that people aren't choosing MAID because they feel like they have no other choice or they don't have adequate aid in living and not just in dying.
But the numbers aren't surprising for doctors providing MAID, who say more awareness and patient control are likely driving the increase.
They are day in, day out suffering, knowing that things are not getting better. So people are making this wish.
Patients must meet the federal criteria and undergo a thorough assessment before receiving MAID. A recently developed course now standardizes training for MAID assessors.
We as clinicians have to figure out, are they intolerably suffering? Is there anything else we can offer them to ease their suffering, to relieve their pain, to relieve their stress, to relieve anything?
Earlier this year, Ottawa announced plans to delay the expansion of MAID to patients whose sole underlying condition is mental illness. That expansion is now slated for March 2027. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Regina.
Back here in Toronto, the plant-based milk beverages recall due to a Listeria outbreak that killed 2 people and hospitalized 13 others were produced here in the GTA. The CFIA says the 18 affected Silk and Great Value brand products were made by third-party manufacturer Jariki Inc., which is located in Pickering. Health officials say the affected products were made on a dedicated production line, which has since been disassembled. The products, including almond, oat, cashew, and coconut-based milk substitutes, were recalled on July 8th. Since then, the Public Health Agency of Canada has confirmed 18 cases of listeriosis, including 12 here in Ontario. A group of cyclists is cruising the Great Lakes for the next few days, raising money for the Children's Health Foundation. CTV's Brent Leal has their story.
We're going to go raise some money for them. 9 cyclists, one important cause.
We're going to do 1,000 kilometers in 6 days for Children's Health Foundation, the Children's Hospital in London.
This is year 2 for the Great Lakes Ride. This time they've added 2 extra riders, including Pete Wilson, about to turn 70 years old.
I wanted to be a role model for my grandson and my other grandchildren.
His one grandson has cystic fibrosis and visits Children's Hospital.
Well, you think the government pays for everything, but they don't. Like, they pay for the building and the wages for all the staff, but the equipment and everything, they still have to raise money for that kind of stuff. So it becomes a good cause to do this.
Last year, the riders brought in $24,000 as they made their way around Western Ontario. This time, they're halfway to their goal of $30,000.
$30,000 could buy us a lot, could buy us equipment for our NICU, could buy us equipment for our PCCU, could buy us multiple pieces, could also support our Child Life program and making sure that our kids get the help for equipment and services that we just wouldn't have without donor dollars.
I wanted to do something for children and Children's Hospital, sick kids in particular. I've always dreamed of this route going around southwestern Ontario and hitting the Great Lakes, and I know this hospital, it really affects pretty much everybody in the area that we're going to be going in because they come from all over.
The 9 cyclists will make their way back to London Saturday. Brent Lale, CTV News.
Still to come on CTV News at noon, stocks are up in early trading today. More on the recovery from that summer sell-off and the rest of your business headlines just ahead.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Stocks moved up in early trading as investors hope the market has pulled out of a summer slump. Andrew Bell of Vienna and Bloomberg brings us the latest in business.
Hello there. Here are your business headlines. Canadian shares rose 1% this morning, and U.S. stocks were up almost 2% after some strong data from the U.S. labor market helped to ease fears of an economic slowdown. Initial jobless claims tumbled the most in nearly a year. However, both American and Canadian indexes were still down more than 4% in August, amid fears that the U.S. Federal Reserve has waited too long to cut interest rates from a 2-decade high. Canadian Tire shares rose 5%, even though sales dropped more than 4% in the company's latest quarter, ended June 29th. The retailer says, quote, the consumer demand environment remained challenging, compounded by cold and wet weather, contributing to sales declines. Profit was higher on a decline in costs, which were inflated last year by a fire at a distribution center. And finally, Bloomberg says Wall Street financial wizards have conjured up possibly their most dizzying product yet in the quest to ride the derivatives boom. CBOE Global Markets is poised to offer options on futures for an index based on options on another index. Movie fans might recall Woody Allen's 1971 film Bananas, in which he complains, I object, Your Honor. This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery of a sham, of a mockery of two mockeries of a sham. That's the latest in business. I'm Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg.
Some mixed financial results today from the parent company of Tim Hortons. Restaurant Brands International said its profit and revenue were up compared to a year ago. Tim Hortons locations in particular helped counter slower sales at other brands owned by the conglomerate like Burger King. Shares in RBI were up as much as 2% in early trading, although they're now up closer to 0.5%. A judge in Nova Scotia will be asked today whether Post Media, owner of the National Post, can expand further and acquire the largest newspaper chain in Atlantic Canada. Post Media is putting in a $1 million bid to purchase Saltwire Network Inc. and the Halifax Herald, two companies that publish newspapers and online content in Nova Scotia, PEI, and Newfoundland and Labrador. The court hearing follows negotiations between Post Media and a union representing workers at the two companies. Disney, meantime, is taking a bigger step into the world of Fortnite. Disney is planning to host a presentation on the video game platform as part of its D23 fan event this weekend. Back in February, Disney invested $1.5 billion into Fortnite owner Epic Games, promising a major foray into the online platform. But since then, the companies haven't said what their partnership will look like. Further details are expected during Saturday's presentation. In sports, the Blue Jays took on the Baltimore Orioles last night in the second game of their series.
Here's 0-2.
hit deep to left field, and that one is way gone.
Anthony Santander had a huge night for the Orioles, hitting 2 home runs in the 7-3 loss for the Jays. Toronto held the lead into the 7th after 5 strong innings from Bowden Francis, but the bullpen couldn't lock down the win. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. extended his hitting streak to 19 games. The series finale goes tonight just after 7 o'clock. And it was a thrilling day for young baseball players. The Jays Care Foundation hosted its annual Challenger Baseball Jamboree, bringing together athletes of all abilities from right across the country. CTV's Rahim Ladani has their story.
From the printed base pads to the special rubber infield, Roy Halliday's field is where dreams are coming true for more than 80 athletes with disabilities from across the country.
I use power and I hit it, and sometimes I get home runs. Oh, sometimes I don't. 30 more seconds!
While the Jays Care Foundation is hosting this Challenger Baseball Jamboree, the program itself is made up of 122 leagues in Canada, supporting 3,600 athletes in adaptive baseball activities. The goal? To empower children with physical and cognitive disabilities and mental health challenges.
It helps get athletes who typically wouldn't get the chance to play baseball in a more traditional environment, gets them off the sidelines and into the game.
This year, 20 of the athletes have traveled from Kamloops, British Columbia. They and their families held a number of fundraisers, including over a dozen bottle drives, and raised more than $120,000 to make the trip to Toronto.
Our athletes just don't get those team opportunities. So to travel as a team, stay in a hotel together as a team, do a team dinner, like just the confidence in the kids, and to include like the friendships that have been built and sense of community and stuff is pretty incredible.
Now that they're here, some of the players are extremely focused for when they step up to the plate.
I pretend that I'm mad at the ball and then I just swing.
While for others, it's the off-field experience that's captured their attention.
We got breakfast, which I had waffles and fruit with bananas, strawberries, and raspberries. Or blackberries, right? I had blackberries on it.
Either way, it's an opportunity to play, build friendships, and create unforgettable memories. Rahim Ladani, CTV News.
Canada's first and only WNBA franchise wants fans to have their say about what the team will be named. Toronto's WNBA team is inviting fans to share everything from name ideas to even sounds and pictures. It's the first step of what they are calling a multi-phase naming process. Starting today, fans can visit a special website to help shape WNBA Toronto's brand. The team says they'll take any inspiration, such as color recommendations, to personal anecdotes.
It's nameyourteam.ca, but it's about way more than a name. Like, we're really looking forward to hearing from all of Canada. What inspires them? Not everybody might have a name, or they might not have a logo that they've drawn, but they definitely have something that inspires them, or something that they want this team to stand for, so they can really have pride in it. So that's what we want to hear. And we hope to get a lot of people and a lot of their ideas, come up with some different themes that will help guide the process.
The team says it expects to decide on a brand by the end of this year. Well, you may know it as breakdancing, but the pros call it breaking, and now it's an Olympic sport. And as CTV's Andrea Case reports, one to watch is a Canadian known as Phil Wizard.
And here's Phil, who competes in breaking and is showcasing functionality through movement.
Phil Wizard Kim is pure magic on the floor, whether it be a runway at the Lululemon Olympic kit launch, on a dance floor, or a hallway. Born in Toronto and raised in Vancouver, he was inspired after seeing a breakdancing crew on the streets of Van City in 2009. Fast forward 15 years later, he's one of the best in the world.
My parents were always super supportive, but obviously in the beginning it was hard, especially when I said I wanted to do this as a career. But we're very lucky now that there's a lot more sustainable ways to make a living off of it, and the Olympic platform is another opportunity for that as well.
He's already racked up medals, winning gold at the World Championships and the Pan American Games.
I'm super excited to have breaking at the Olympics. Like you said, it's the first time. It's a great way to showcase breaking on a bigger platform, and I think people are going to love it when they see it in Paris.
Competing in Paris at the Olympics at Place de Concorde, the largest public square in Paris, will be a first for Kim and his fellow competitors, as this is the first time the sport is in official contention. They will go head-to-head for 6 seconds twice in the first round robin, 3 times in the knockout phase on a 6x6 meter dance floor, with a DJ spinning the music live.
It's a great feeling. I mean, honestly, in most breaking events that I go to, I've always represented Canada. So when they announce me, they always say Phil Wizard from Canada. So that's something that I'm very proud of. But again, going to something like the Olympics, it's an even bigger platform. So to represent now not only myself, my crews, my family, but now my country on a bigger scale, I'm super excited.
The men and women known as B-Boys and B-Girls will compete when the breaking competition begins on August 9th, with the B-Girls going head-to-head first and Kim and the B-Boys hitting the floor on August 10th. Andrea Case, CTV News.
Oh, it's going to be fun to watch. And one of the hottest tickets in Paris isn't actually for the games themselves. It's for the Olympic cauldron. CTV's Geneviève Beauchemin has the story.
At sunset every Olympic night, the cauldron, shaped as a hot air balloon, rises above Paris.
Et là, franchement, de l'avoir juste à notre portée, là, de voir même la petite.
It's touching, says Parisian Christian Rodriguez. It epitomizes the values of the Olympics: higher, stronger, and we're all here together to see it. This flight sets off a celebration of the Games, of French culture and history. A beacon of light, say organizers, in the night. The Vasque, as it is called in French, draws its shape from the invention of the hot air balloon by brothers the Montgolfiers in the 1700s. The designer of the cauldron, Mathieu Lehanard, says it pays tribute to the spirit of creativity, innovation, and sometimes madness of France.
It's the
first time there's a cauldron that flies, and the first time there's an Olympic flame that is not a real flame. It's not fire, but rather LED spotlights and 200 high-pressure misting nozzles. And so it produces less fossil fuels than the usual cauldrons kept aflame with natural gas. This new work of art in Paris has launched 1,000, well, actually millions of selfies, and set British artist Charlie Davies off on a journey.
I saw it on the TV at home about 3 days ago and thought, I really need to come and paint this because it's so glorious. And so I booked a trip and came, and I've got 27 hours to paint in Paris, and then I have to go home.
Davies says she is better with a brush than words. She seemed to find ones to describe this moment.
By its very nature, it's uplifting, isn't it? So it's going to rise up, and I think that's what the Olympics is all about. Everybody's rising to the challenge, and it's just an amazing thing.
The mayor says she wants to keep this cauldron after the games end, to be part of the new landscape of the City of Lights. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Paris.
Coming up, there's a new roller coaster coming to Canada's Wonderland. The exciting new plans for the park just ahead. Canada's Wonderland is getting a new roller coaster next year. Ooh, into the mountain. Alpine Fury is being branded as Canada's longest, tallest, and fastest launch coaster. It will feature 2 launches, one that propels guests into the depths of Wonder Mountain, and a second that will blast them 50 meters high out the top. Then they'll race along 1,000 meters of track, twisting, flipping through 9 inversions, the most in North America for a launch coaster. Jess and I are game for that one, that's for sure. Another exciting event, the Toronto International Film Festival has announced its non-fiction lineup.
Let's do the exercise. If we have the old picture, in the
Some
way
elements are missing.
Some of the Canadian titles include So Surreal Behind the Masks, in which directors Neil Diamond and Joanne Robertson trace endeavors to repatriate Indigenous masks and other artifacts to 2 Pacific Northwest nations. Other highlights include a doc about the rise and fall of Vice Media, titled Vice is Broken, as well as Your Tomorrow, which follows the fight to save Ontario Place amid plans to build a massive spa and indoor water park. TIFF runs from September 5th to the 15th. It's not far off but it's still far off because I feel like when TIFF comes, now we're getting into fall, even though it's still technically summer. So we're firmly in the summer still. We got the warmth, but we also have some of the stormy stuff.
We do, and we have the system kind of slowly moving. It's been a slow burner. We've been watching Tropical Storm Debbie literally make its way towards us. The bulk of it really is going to impact eastern Ontario, but we're on the periphery, so we do see impact from this. A significant amount of rain. We've already seen a ton. I know a lot of folks still cleaning up from the last rain event with all of the basement flooding out there. So something to keep in mind looking ahead to tonight and into tomorrow morning. But the good news is it's not a wash of a day. And as we head in towards our Friday late afternoon, we actually see some sunshine. So we do kind of everything in the span of 24 hours between heat, humidity, rain, sun, and then back towards a more seasonal forecast. But right now it's still pretty cloudy out there. We're holding on to the chance of maybe a pop-up shower as we head throughout our afternoon. But the bulk of this really comes in as we head through the overnight. Right now, we're still sitting at 23, still feeling like 31, so that humidity is on the rise. Still looking at those statements in place for the GTA, for the Golden Horseshoe, anywhere kind of east of Peterborough. You're holding on to that rainfall warning, and that is a significant amount of rain. Any rain right now really is significant. We're still seeing a really saturated ground and high river levels. So we'll keep a close eye on that. But temperature-wise, we stay seasonal before the humidity, and then into the weekend, it's pretty nice.
Thank you, Jess. That's it for CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca. For Jessica Smith and the whole team here, have a wonderful afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and then 6. See you then.